is the Ottawa Jazz Festival right now. Normally I would take you straight into the park to look at the fountain, but I can't go into the park right now because the show tonight. But if you take a look straight this way to your left, you'll see there's a big fountain in the center of the park. Big fountain. The fountain is what my next story is about. I'm just letting you know where it is so you can see it as we're walking by, and then we're going to stop on the other side. Now you're following me just over this way.
There, that's right. There, that's the best one. And came to Canada early. Totally environmental. And now the ambassador of Canada. Of course.
Show hasn't started yet, so another sound check on that. Okay, so that fountain in the center of the park, this park is called Confederation Park, and the fountain that stands in the middle of it has stood in the center of this park since 1956. The fountain is called the Colonel John By Memorial Fountain. However, the fountain did not start life in this park or even in Ottawa. This fountain originally stood in Trafalgar Square in London, England. There was this fountain and another one exactly like it, and the two stood side by side in London from the early 1800s until just after the Second World War. Now, during the Second World War, London was bombed quite heavily, and the fountains were damaged along with the rest of Trafalgar Square. So what they did is they packed up the fountains and they shipped them to Canada as a present, only slightly damaged. If you can get close to the fountain today, which the park is open during the day, and get a closer look at it, there are actually pieces missing out of the edge of the fountain, and that's actually the bomb damage the fountains took in London. They had to remodel Trafalgar Square, so that's part of why they removed them. So one of them then, some years later, ends up here in 1956, and the other fountain is actually in front of the legislation buildings in Regina, Saskatchewan. So we still have two fountains. Now, there's not actually a ghost story right now about these fountains per se, but when they were in London, there was a ghost story about them. In the very early 1800s, there was a murder, and the victim of this murder was found floating face down in one of the fountains. And for years after, it was said that if you walked by the fountains late at night, you would see a body floating in the water. And when you went to get a closer look at the body, it would just vanish away. Now, when the fountains were packed up, they spent a few years in storage, they got mixed up a couple times, so we don't actually know if we have the haunted fountain or if they have the haunted fountain out in Saskatchewan. We have not heard any specific stories from Saskatchewan, but we haven't heard any specific stories here either, so it's a little bit up in the air. What we do is we advise our groups that if you are spending some time in Ottawa and you do happen to be walking through this park, if you do see a body floating in the fountain, we encourage you to approach. If the body vanishes, we'd like you to give us a call. We'd love to hear about it. If it doesn't, you're going to want to call the police.